Four Corners, a collection of 4 Pokemon assembled specifically to combat the metagame. Lantern, Macargo, Rhyn, and Dark Hypno. If you don't know the metagame and you're just looking at this deck list, it looks like a jumble that you just threw together out of a cube or something. But it actually does its job pretty well. So let's look at each of these 4 corners individually and talk about the key metagame matchups. Starting with the one that I feel is least relevant to the metagame but still serves an essential function in the deck, that one being Macargo. Macargo can hit your bulky steel types for weakness like Metagross EX and Dark Steelix, and it can also discard stadiums when necessary, but the biggest draw for Macargo is its smooth overpower, which lets you search your deck for any card and put it on top of your deck, a great power to use right before you use a supporter card that lets you draw cards. That way you can essentially search out and get whatever card you want from your deck. Pidgeot with an extra step, except it's a stage 1 and you're not wasting room in your deck for Pidgeot. Plus you can whip out a Macargo for a combustion when you are up against those bulky steel types. Smooth Over is a good enough power that isn't shut down Battle Frontier that you'll see it pop up in a bunch of decks where they don't even care about its typing, they just want the ability to put any card on top of their deck. Lantern is in a similar boat, but does have more utility as an attacker. It's a great Pokemon to have on your bench because its energy grounding power is going to give you a free experience share every time your active Pokemon is knocked out, so extra energy that would otherwise go to the discard pile onto Lantern. Depending on your matchup, this can be an extremely scary Pokemon because Lightning Strike gives you the option of discarding energy, though you don't have to. If you choose not to discard energy, you can OHKO a Ludicolo. If you do choose to discard all the energy, you can OHKO a Blastoise EX. 2 Pokemon that saw a lot more play towards the end of the 2005 season. Rhyn is an interesting one because this is not a card that you see popping up in a lot of other archetypes. Though it slots perfectly into 4 corners, it's a 90 HP stage 1, and it has the Power Diffusion Pokebody, which prevents damage to your benched Pokemon. Very important against Blaziken and Dark Tyranitar. Especially Dark Tyranitar because you're also going to be hitting it for weakness. The major reason that Hariyama and Medicham EX became such big decks is because Fighting type was a key weakness that you wanted to hit in this metagame. It wasn't just Dark Tyranitar, it was also Sneasel, Dark Electrode, Dark Ampharos, Delcatty, Team Aqua's Manectric, Manectric EX, Slacking, we'll throw Slacking in there. Just another great utility card that isn't just an attacker, it can do more than that if necessary. But a stage 1 with a 3 energy attack, it fits perfectly in this deck. Lastly, we have Dark Hypno, which is going to be in this deck simply for Black Magic. You're never going to use Dark Link. Black Magic deals 20 damage times the number of your opponent's benched Pokemon. This is the EX era. All the benches are always full. There are so many support Pokemon that just sit on the bench, like your Delcattys, your Dunsparce, your Jirachis, your Pidgeots. There's so many Pokemon constantly filling benches. Even if you're playing a turn 2 deck, you are still setting up all of your backup attackers on the bench, and it may not be full, but Dark Hypno is still going to be able to hit you for a lot of damage, especially if you are weak to Psychic or Dark types. We don't see a lot of Dark weaknesses in the 2005 format, but as far as Psychic weakness goes, we have Medicham, Hariyama, Metagross, Vileplume, Muck. Dark Hypno is kind of the counter to the counter. As I said earlier, we have a lot of fighting types towards the end of the 2005 metagame because we had so many key Pokemon weak to fighting. The same thing was kind of true for Grass. Grass started seeing more play because people realized most of the big decks are weak to Grass. And almost every single one of those key counter fighting and grass types were weak to Psychic. But even if you're not weak to Psychic or Dark, this is still a Pokemon to be scared of because Black Magic is getting you a lot of value out of only 2 energy. There's also the secret 5th corner of this deck, which is Crystal Shard, which is going to allow any of your Pokemon to become a normal type and hit for weakness against Rayquazas and Dark Dragonite. If your opponent does not know that you're running Crystal Shard and they're playing a Pokemon that's weak to normal, dropping this onto any of your Pokemon and hitting for weakness incredible, feels great. One of the main reasons this deck is even viable is because of Swoop Teleporter. I don't know why this card gives me the urge to announce it like Hawk Tuah, a reference that will 100% be outdated by the time this video posts, but it lets you swap basic Pokemon in play for basic Pokemon out of your deck, and then discarding the initial basic Pokemon. So if you've got Rhyhorns in play, but you really need to set up Drowsies instead, then Swoop! Teleport that thing. This trainer alone just adds so much consistency to this deck and allows a lot of maneuverability when it comes to getting the key Pokemon into play to hit those key weaknesses. The other major reason that this deck is able to function is because the EX era is full of amazing special energy cards, and this just continues as the EX era progresses. I'll get more into it once we get to the 2006 season, but this is truly an era where you can just put whatever Pokemon you want into a deck and play it. Which lends itself really well to experimentation and trying new things within the format, forming lots of rogue decks, which is what Four Corners kinda is. It's a nice little delve into what a purely anti-meta deck can look like. So here is your sample deck list. You see that for the most part our key attackers all have 2/2 lines, with this sample having a 1/1 line of the Rhydon. Personally, when I'm playing this deck, I like to hit for those fighting weaknesses, so I tend to run a 2/2 line of the Rhydon instead and cut the Jirachi. The Jirachi start can be nice, but I'd much prefer to have Dunsparce in the active position, especially if you're going into game 2 or 3 with this deck and you know what you're up against, so you know what basics you need to prioritize into play. But this deck is also designed to be piloted by someone that knows the metagame very well, so most of the time, up on the initial flip, you're going to see what your opponent's active Pokemon is and be able to determine what deck you're up against, unless it's a straight up Dunsparce v Dunsparce to start the game. In which case you just grab whatever you're vibing with the Dunsparce, and if it's not the correct choice, you have Swoop Teleporters. Once you have your basics of choice in play, we got 3 copies of Celio's Network that's going to help you search out those evolution cards, as well as some straight up draw power to help you capitalize off of Macargo's Smooth Over, and just generally draw into the Pokemon and tools that you need to win. Pokemon Retriever can be pretty essential for recycling the Pokemon that are key for your current matchup, and then Switch will allow you to get them into play faster once they are retrieved from your deck and fully set up on the bench. You'll see in our energy spread that you can actually get a 3 energy attack set up pretty quickly in a pinch if you need to, thanks to the 3 copies of Double Rainbow and the 2 copies of Scramble Energy. Plus you have the versatility of the 3 multi-energy, which are going to serve for your fighting and or fire slots, and then your 3 basic lightning and 3 basic psychic, so that you do have some basic energy in play to play off of Lantern's power. This deck is built to have good matchups, to be able to exploit weaknesses in the metagame overall, and it does its job well. So why don't you see Four Corners in the top 16s or top 32s of any major tournaments in 2005? Well, it's because this deck is a rogue variant, so it has the same weaknesses as all other rogue decks, and when you go this hard into anti-meta, the deck is built specifically to have good matchups, but it doesn't have a singular focus that it excels at. Meta decks are meta because they are the best at doing a thing, so they excel regardless of matchup because they are built specifically to do that thing. As a longtime rogue player, and I'm sure most other rogue players will tell you the same thing, nothing feels worse than building an anti-meta deck and then you show up to a tournament and you don't play against the meta. That's when your Four Corners deck does not look like a carefully crafted response to the metagame and instead looks like a jumble of cards that you threw together. A variant of Four Corners you'll often see is more Ludicargo focused, where people just go, well, Ludicargo is already a great deck on its own. What if we just treat the Rhydon, Dark Hypno, and or Lanterns as techs? So you'll have your base Ludicargo build, which I've already featured on the channel, go check it out on the playlist, but with just one or more of those Four Corners additions added on with multi-energy to tackle whatever matchups you're anticipating. Sometimes you'll also see the Emerald Ninetales mixed in. It shares a type with Macargo and can attack for similar damage, but this Ninetales does mix in the special condition factor. As always, let me know what you thought about the deck down in the comments. Let me know if you have any experience piloting this deck or playing against it. We are getting close to the end of the 2005 playlist. So be sure to check out these last few deck techs over on the playlist, and check out all the other Pokemon Vintage TCG content I have on the channel. I appreciate you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.